we continue working on the block. Let's define it in the next style. So the height of this block is 566 pixels. Let's proceed differently. We will set a minimum height, but make it dynamic, depending on the content, since here it's 120 and here it's 120 pixels. Therefore, don't forget that we are currently working with the subscribe block, so we are editing it specifically. CSS. So this width reset is no longer needed, especially since it's for a different class. So we will need a selector for the subscribe container, and we remove everything in this selector and proceed to writing styles. So the minimum height we'll set to 500 pixels. Let it be 500 pixels. Padding at the top and bottom will be 120, but we'll use clamp to make them dynamic. So our wrapper is 1540. I'll set it, and 120 will be on desktop. 60 will be on mobile devices. Let's copy this value for time and use it as padding top, padding bottom, and at the same time, box sizing. Border box. We specify. Next, set position relative because I need to apply a mask here. You see this mask, which in the dark version of the site has a different color. We used such a mask in the hero block. Now we will take the variables, but we will attach it to a pseudo element. Let's create a pseudo element before. With height 100% to fill the entire area. Position it with absolute. And we will set the background. Let's go into hero and recall what background we set there. So we had a hero mask, so we will set the width to 80%. And the background is mask gradient. Index 1. I don't remember why it's not there, probably because we have a different container there. Let's repeat the index 0 here. Percent. And the next element we have is this subscribe inner. Let's address it. It should have position relative so that it goes over this mask. Next, it should have a z index greater than the mask, so z index 1. Next, the elements inside it, we have 3 elements there. A title, a description, and a shortcode. Should go from top to bottom, so we'll use flexbox. Justify content. In principle, you don't have to set it, but I did. They kind of moved to the center vertically. And here's what we get. The only thing is, we don't have a height on this subscribe inner. And now, due to the minimum height, they don't move to the center. Let's try to set the height in percentage for this element. Next, regarding the title. It already inherits the size I need because I set it as H2. We will confirm this now. So it has 54 pixels in the layout. Oh no, it's 64 in the layout because the H1 style is used. But that's not a problem. We'll rewrite it now. Let's move to the plan. So we're interested in 64 pixels for the desktop and let it be 54 for mobile. Then this dynamic size will be used for the title. Let's set the font size, then I'll refer to it, and not by the tag, but rather by the class. Also, we will have a class for description, which with sizes of 20 pixels, let's look here, I think, also 20. So also 20 in terms of colors. Let's see what we have here. Yes, in terms of colors it is secondary here, while there it is not secondary, just regular. So let's check in the dark version what's happening. In the version everything is fine in terms of the width. Let's take a look. We have a width set to 800 pixels maximum. And the shape too. Yes, the shape also fits within these 800 pixels. So on the container as well. Set the maximum width to 800 pixels. Next, we look at the description. This day in light. Color, primary. We have them as text secondary. Is color primary firstly as text, and secondly not primary but secondary. All right. Further in the heading we have the strong tag that should apply coloring like this. So we'll take it. Also from Kirov, we can use this entire selector Now next we will examine the year 1632. It would be nice if this 1 year is not a big deal. So let's set 16 pixels. And for the element with the shape, it should be 32. Yes, that means we need to add another 16. So also on the subscribe shirt code, we'll add an additional margin. When small margins like 16, I clang, not using clang, I use only for large values, that is 120 pixels. This is a very large size for a mobile device, so that's the approach I apply there. And when these paddings and margins are 16 or 24, I don't apply a plan. Let's update and see. Wonderful. We set the width and it's centered because of one of its properties. Let's see, as well as the properties, this one. Start. All correct. We have the wrappers class, meaning it's not flex. It gets centered and it's the margins on the sides that do it. Therefore, we'll do it differently. We'll remove this width from the inner. Remove it. And add it to the inner elements. Let's add it. And to the description, line height. Visually, it seemed to me, no, it's fine. Let's see. It might be too little. And the second point, which is slightly different in the layout, is how the gradient is interpreted in Figma and in the browser. So here I set the gradient on the strong container and it applies it to me. From this area, one color, to this area, another color. Whereas here, it is barely noticeable because the gradient is applied from this point to this point. That's just how it was added in the design. So here we see something a little different. But my idea is like this. So this is how the gradient should be. Let's return to the white. Range. Yes, the colors also look good. Let's style the forms now. For forms, I usually style inputs and buttons in a global CSS file, but here we have forms that are custom with a transparent background specifically for this block because, for example, in contact, there's a white background. If they are transparent, essentially both the background and the forms will be transparent and nothing will be visible. Probably let's also put them in the global CSS. We'll write them down so that we don't have to rewrite many styles later. So let's get to it. Let's recall where our global CSS is located. It's in the template directory and it's the game store CSS. And the second point, we have edit a style, which is displayed in the admin panel, but the forms will not be displayed in the admin panel. Specifically for this block because the shortcode is dynamic. But another block, for example, the contact form might be in the admin panel. This is also worth considering for your projects. And if the styles need to work both here and there, then we duplicate them in the editor. I'll go to where I registered the button. Here's the hero button. And in this section, I will be adding input. Section, we'll just add it immediately with a type. For the text type. And for the email type, we will add other types as they come up. These are the two types we use in the form. So first we'll reset. Padding, no. Margin, 0. Width, 100% of the container. Height, 60 pixels. Box sizing, like border box. Pairing, 6" fork. Border and radius. Let's first set the radius to 5 pixels. And the border itself, so 1 pixel. And here's the variable with the value. I copied just too much, so I'll remove the excess. So then the divider input should have this variable because when the theme changes, it will change the color. Here they are, and we'll add it here because it's missing. And take the value. So this value is for the light theme. And for the dark one, this value is good. Next, the style for the text. Don't forget to also reset the background. So the background is transparent. This is how we reset it. And for the text, let's insert the color like this. Let's see how the color changes. It changes from dark to light. Background surname, we'll leave the size. Let's leave everything. Line height, 1. Let's update. Let's see. Good. So we messed up with the height here. Everything else is great. We'll go up to the height and fix the mistake. Next, we have the container. We just copy this one because it's dynamic. Again, it depends on which plugin you use. Different plugins will generate different layouts. We take the necessary one and add, so to speak, a fix. That's why I'm setting styles for this specific selector now, because it's in my project. You might have a different one. And I'll set its display. Flex, align item center, gap 24. Pixels. And I return back to the game store. In the game store, I still need to set styles for the button, which means we've already written styles for the button above. In here, essentially it's the same button. So here, where we have the hero button, we will add another selector. As a selector, we used in input with type submit. Because there are no classes here, and in general these are global styles that will be applied to any forms generated by different plugins. Since we are not attaching to any classes and not using any, we use the selector by tag, making them universal. And let's check just in case. I think we had a link there. I don't remember what the tag was. And since there are no shadow classes right now, we'll come up with something. We'll most likely set this style here in the block. Let's take a look first. So, in principle, is not bad, but we do need to update the styles since it was a link. Now it's a button, and the button has different styles that override. I'll force it here and set Ubuntu. What else do we have? So here the height is 54. In our design it's 60, but we are updating this only for the block. That is, these are global styles. This is for the block, so for the block. We will add additional styles. These are paddings. Next, I suggest and set the shadow. And what else do we have here? And on hover, this shadow changes slightly, so we will also simply attach this on hover. Further, this style in principle I think is inherited. I'm still missing the cursor. For the button, and let's refresh, see? So for some reason I don't see the changes. The compiler seems to be running. Here we are impotent, of course. The selector by the dot was completely incorrectly written under. Yes, now it's better. And in case of an error, we have the same effect as well. Everything is great. We've launched specifically with this block. I think we are done. I will check this text. Well, yes, he seems the same everywhere to me, but it seemed to me that he looks thicker here. But compared to the design, maybe he seems thinner here, but it's not 100% here. So we'll make it 100%. And what else do we have here? Maybe there is spacing here, by the way. Let's check if it's here. Well, yes, it's here. It is. That's how it renders. In general, this font renders exactly like this. But I think it's enough here. Now let's look in the admin panel to see what needs to be reset, because not all styles are included there, but it will load the main styles. Of course, it loaded the rest of the styles, except for what needs to be reset. We'll reset these margins for the headings. I copy the class directly from the front block like this, but I add this code to the edit. So everything is here from the previous block, the same updates. Mean the entire margin is 0. And here the same, the entire margin. 0. So, in principle, what needed to be implemented, we created a new hybrid block. Static data is edited right here. Dynamic data, of course, is edited on the DAMS territory, and the shortcode is added here. Here we do not display this shortcode, but on the front part we do display it. Actually, there's something else that needs to be done here, but I won't do it because the plugin needs to be integrated with the email system, and it needs to be tested. This will either return an error or return a result and add additional styling to the result message. So now I'll try to send something, and we need to take this class as well. Attach it to the message. See, it overlaps. It would be worth adding some styles to it. Right on this response. We can do this, or we might not need to do it. And the second point, maybe it makes sense to consider the option for the plugin to submit the form via Ajax. Again, this is all within the plugins domain. Its functionality in the settings, you just need to set it up. There's a top padding of 16 pixels here. Let's use it. Like this, it's better, and you can set the same color as well. Like this, but everything is clear with it. We have finished with this block, so it needs to be sent to the repository. Remember, in the previous lesson, we installed a separate plugin to create this shortcode. So this plugin is also in our project now, and it will also be part of it. That is, I will now send it to the repository along with it. MailChimp for WordPress. If, for example, during development you need a certain plugin and you want to have it installed on your local machine, you are testing something. There are many plugins designed to, for example, see cron jobs, all running crons, to see, or perimeter, there is a plugin that shows how many requests. And to use this plugin locally, but not send it to the repository, you can easily disable them in the gitignore file. Here we simply specify the necessary directory. For example, here we have MailChimp VP. If we don't want to save it, in this way, this will be enough. We add it, and it will just be grayed out for us. There won't be 3000 modified files here anymore. It will now calculate. There definitely won't be 3000. It needs time. Most likely you need to close and reopen this directory, but the most important thing is that here, it's grayed out for us all during the commit. It will no longer be sent to the GitHub repository, but I need it there because it is part of the project. So I defer it from here. I remove it here. I will mark and push the changes. And in the next lesson, we will create a new branch, and work with the next block. See you in the next lesson.